I am the only person who can help my future self.
Yeah.
And so when I think about that and I own that, then today the decisions that I make can be designed for specific outcomes.
We're here with Donna and Joseph. How you guys doing?
Good. So good.
Yeah, this is interesting.
Yeah.
So brother and sister, co-founders, not one, two companies. You guys did Tribe, sold that to NetSuite?
To NetSuite, yeah.
NetSuite, and then started Kite. What is Kite?
Want me to take that?
Yeah.
Do you? Yeah.
we were just joking. It's like
Fighting over the
they're
mic.
going to fight,
Yeah.
sibling fighting on tape. Yes.
Yeah, so we do digital sales playbooks.
Yeah.
So imagine giving a sales rep a single pane of glass that has their collateral, their cheat sheets, and the tribal knowledge they need to move deals forward. Yeah.
Would people call this like sales enablement or?
It's definitely inside the sales enablement stack, but
Cool.
historically, a lot of companies just look at sending out PDFs and measuring who opened them. So we're doing things a little bit differently.
Okay. How do you guys decide who works on what?
I talk and yammer on events, and then Donna makes it work.
Yeah, rock,
Yeah.
paper, scissors. is
Okay,
really
so
it.
boom, boom, boom. So Donna's actually married to Michael Litt, founder, CEO of Vidyard, and one of my good buds. So now I know who the brain in the whole operation is. Michael, and you know it too. He's told me that himself. But for real, like, is there are you more outward facing? You manage the operations, Donna. How does that work?
Yeah, it's a good question. So the way we'll typically characterize it is Joseph, historically our entire lives, has always dreamed big,
Okay.
very ambitious, wants to change the world, and I love executing on ambitious things. So that works out really
More
well for the two of
operations.
us. But I mean, being able to work with your sibling is a little bit like working with two heads. You share language, you share culture, you kind of know where the other one's going to fall down, and so you can precipitate a lot, and that's been very productive
I find it
for us.
fascinating. No, I'm not going to lie. My brother and I started, he started a home building company. I was the money guy, silent. And at one point, and I actually had him on the show, but we never talked about this because I didn't know if he felt comfortable. But it kind of got to a point where there was a bit of contention. He was doing all the work. I wasn't. I owned a big percentage of the business. How does that look out? How because I remember when we started that, my dad was against it, and my lawyer said, 80% of the time he's dealt with family businesses that didn't end right. I'm assuming you guys had a successful exit in the last company, but how have you guys dealt with when things aren't going good? Have you guys had fights?
Ish.
Yeah.
that one.
Let's say that.
Yeah, Joseph.
I want to know.
Yeah. You're right. Like, it happens. I think we're lucky in that we've gone through it a couple of times. So I think we've worked out.
What's an example?
A really good example is
Nobody's listening. Just us three.
Good, just the three of
Yeah.
us. We're very different personalities in a lot of ways. Similar experiences, so same language and framework. I tend to think a lot about the things, the work, the product, the kind of ideas. Donna keeps us level and even in making sure that we take care of our people. And so one of the things that could cause problems, and we've been really lucky because I think there's a lot of mutual respect there, is we'll prioritize things differently. And more often than not, it feels a little bit like me saying, hey, let's do this thing.
Negotiation?
No, it's more like Donna gives me a swift cuff on the upside of the head. It's like,
So
you
this is
forgot
good.
about this.
You actually feel like you're like, hey, I want to do this, and then Donna, you're open to her saying, hey, we need to consider this aspect and this stuff.
Oh, no, 100%, because half of my ideas are just crazy-ass shit, and she
That's
keeps
good.
us on
Know
a good
thyself.
position.
So you know that like some of these stuff you're just throwing something on the wall. And
Half our conversations are like, it starts off with, Donna, tell me if this is a bad idea.
Okay.
But
that's this is fascinating. That's a good way to know like how to frame the conversation so that really there can't be a fighting. If you're starting off by being almost like self-deprecating to like, hey, I think this is a crazy idea, is it? Versus I want to go do this.
Well, and I think part of it also is our whole team recognizes that as the CEO, as the outward spoken person, I get a lot of credit for the work Donna does. We're really well recognized for having really diverse teams, really empathetic culture.
Totally.
We get a lot of people who want to come work with us. I love that. And 90% of that's Donna's work. And that's a swift reminder every single day. It's people are like, Joseph, great job at this. And I know it's Donna. And so that's really helpful. And our team sees it. They know it. So that makes it a lot easier.
No ego, Donna. You don't feel.
I prefer to say that it's a team sport.
But do you ever? Does it ever frustrate you when Joseph might be getting the recognition because he's more?
Oh, no, never in 1,000 years would I want to be a CEO in the same way that I've seen CEOs to date. And I mean, you mentioned it, my partner, Michael, he's in that seat, and there is no lonelier, more difficult job.
So hard.
Yeah.
You're not allowed to have a bad day.
No.
Everybody's looking at you. You got to, that's crazy. How did you guys come to why do Kite after an HR product? Like, how did you guys kind of come to that?
Yeah, so I'll tell my version, then if I've got anything wrong, you can.
That's like my wife and I, when it's like, how'd you guys meet? I'm like, whose version do you want?
That's exactly it.
Yeah.
So I mean, with Tribe HR, what we wanted to do was build tools to really help make the employee's life better. We wanted to increase autonomy, increase transparency into the workplace, and we wanted to do that in an impactful way as possible. So we started with the HR file.
Mm-hmm.
So if you can imagine taking that HR file, which, current state of things, it's scary, it's dark, it's locked away in a cabinet, but instead opening it up and turning it into an empowering artifact, that's a very different way of thinking about it. And that's what we did.
What was it? What was Tribe like in regards to the feature set?
So it was a social HRIS, and it had your full suite of HRS features, including performance management, your booking time off, your PTO, et cetera.
Okay.
But really, what made it different is that it had these social elements to it that you can kind of correlate to like your Facebook. So if you imagine your employee record, but more of like a Facebook profile, your employee
So was there
file.
a feed that everybody could see, or you had with your manager? How would the?
Yeah, absolutely. There was a company feed that had all of the peer and public recognition that someone within an organization received. So you could reinforce company values, you could demonstrate what behavior was actually moving the needle to the entire organization and broadcast that, and have that then append automatically to their employee records that come time for their review, you've got this wonderful history of the very rich, nuanced anecdotes about how this individual is actually performing as it relates to your value set. So
super cool.
Yeah, it was super magical, and we did that. We ended up, growing that organization and selling it, and in that process, we learned that, while we had done a lot to help make employees' lives better, we really just focused on a subset. It was the HR professional who we were impacting most, and while yes, there was absolutely benefits to the employee base, it didn't have that same reach that we had envisioned at the outset. So when we went back to the table, at the beginning of Kite, we said, okay, let's go back to basics. How can we make the biggest contribution? How can we impact employees' lives in the greatest possible way? And ended up, through a series of iteration and testing on where we are today with Kite.
And how does Kite work? Because it feels like you're still kind of like iterating and learning from the market, but I'm also seeing, I guess, a trend of like taking information and presenting it, as almost like not crowdsourced, but best practices and what other people are doing. Is that one of the big things that Kite enables is the organization kind of self-learning?
Definitely. I think the real key addition is we started in chat. And for a lot of people, when you think about sales, it feels like a weird place to start. Like, why are you looking at Slack and Skype? But we looked at almost
internal chat or
internal,
external?
100%
Okay.
internal.
So sales channels and
sales, customer success, product, all of it. And we looked at almost 750 million messages and understood, how do sales reps have problems? Where do they have
gave
pain
you
points?
access to all?
Well, our very first product to do that was a chatbot.
Okay.
Yeah. So, accessing your documents, your resources in chat, but that helped us understand what's the DNA and what's the problem in organizations. Really refined a lot of our technology. So it's great. We can find customer stories in your Google Docs, on your website, in your blog. That helps us understand it. So we automate, but we also give people the opportunity to do that. Here's my cheat sheet for discovery calls.
Yeah.
And all of that machine learning then helps somebody say, hey, you know what? I want to know how discovery calls go really well. I'm going to take, David's cheat sheet and make it my own, and the system will recommend changes and navigate all of that. So there's definitely a human and an automation side to it.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
Where do you guys see, in the world of like the choruses, the refracts, the gong, like around that sales, coaching, sales, training, like where do you think the world of sales is going?
A lot of that gets centered around automation and AI. So when people talk about those vendors, they'll talk a lot about AI and technology. And what's great is I hear a lot of people say, Gong, Chorus, others are transforming the way we sell, and that's good. That's a really good thing. But all of those are effectively reactive tools.
Yeah.
They're looking at what is your team doing, and then a human will say, well, that was good, that was bad, or this was the score. Let's sit down and have a conversation. Instead, I think what we're seeing, and what I think we're going to see more of, is teams saying, I aspire to be like this. I know this organization does a great job of outbound. I want to be like them.
Yeah.
I know this rep handles inbound leads really well. I want everyone to be like that. And setting
Looking
the goals.
for bright spots.
Exactly.
And then trying to teach that.
And so we see a lot of people using not just our templates, but sharing best practices between organizations.
Really?
A lot of that. And that's so cool to see.
I know you guys
It's
asked
really
me,
good.
Donna, a long time when you guys launched for some of my videos. I was flattered. Yeah, I was just like, okay, I'll give it to you. I don't know if people, I don't know if I have the best stuff. How did you identify that library? How did you figure out who to pull stuff from? Because I almost feel like unless you guys have an editorial approach to it, then it's just a lot of, could be conflicting approaches, right? How did you kind of like look at the data set and decide what to put in the library?
Yeah. Well, stage of business, we kind of finger in the wind tested and identified who are the companies that we aspired to be more like, who are the individuals, who are the thought leaders that we put on a pedestal that we said from our experience and in our networks are the best. And so we started there and cheekily, it's a template gallery, it's on the internet. There's a lot of SEO value to come from that. And so you're able to borrow a lot from those brands in that context. And so that was certainly a factor when we were starting and when we launched the gallery. Since then, we are now powering almost 5,000 playbooks on the product, and so we've learned a lot and we've seen a lot, and so are now in the process of revising that gallery. And you'll see in our newsletters all the time we're pushing out new templates that are derived from those objection handling best practices, for example, and that comes from all the learning that we've seen to date.
Anybody can register for this newsletter?
Yeah, absolutely.
To go to your website?
Yeah.
100%.
Okay, everybody go subscribe.
Yeah.
Do you see a day where the AI could do the call? Curious what you think.
So it's interesting.
When you see Google do those demos of like booking, a virtual assistant booking and interacting with these nuanced conversational styles, it's interesting.
So it's neat. There are vendors that will use technologies to automate emails, LinkedIn messages, chat. Yeah. And so to a certain extent, we're there. If you think about a call as a placeholder for reaching out to a customer.
Yeah, just adding a voice to the written word.
Yeah. Now, the challenge, though, and I think the one thing that's really interesting is if you think about the idea of you're on a call with a customer, that's situational awareness of, what's the scenario, who's the competitor, what's the product, what's the right move to make right now? Not what's any move, but what's the right move. We're nowhere near there because it's like a chess game. And there are rules to chess, and sure, you could say, great, we've got AI engines that are winning at chess. But the reality is chess is really understood. It's got a really defined rule set.
Yeah.
And can you imagine trying to teach someone to be a grandmaster at chess by saying, hey, watch how Jim plays chess and pick up all the rules and just do what he does? But that's what we do with sales reps.
Yeah.
So the journey to get there, that's going to be a long one. And if you've got somebody repping your company, you don't want somebody who just knows the basics and the rules. You want somebody who's playing at a grandmaster level. So I think there's going to be a long time for a role for a sales professional to add that judgment into the equation.
But in today's world, I think the data shows that sellers are becoming younger, right? They have less experience in the domain that they're selling into. Maybe they don't stay in a sales role as long, maybe 60 months, 2 years. What do companies, what are the things that these reps need to be? And do you guys focus mostly on SDRs, AEs, both?
So on that one, our customers all over.
Okay.
So we'll have teams that say we're focused primarily on SDRs with their use of Kite. Others who say primarily AEs. A lot who do both. So a mix, all of the above.
If you had to prioritize kind of the skill set or information that you think they need to get right first to be better at, selling, what do you think that would be?
So rather than just stating kind of our opinions, because our opinions are valuable as whatever. I think a good way to look at it is what are people putting into their playbooks?
Okay.
What is the most used and what is the most created content?
Now I'm excited.
And that's a lot of fun. So if you take a look at the content people are adding to their playbooks, the number one across the board in a topic area is onboarding.
Onboarding.
I know.
Okay, so training.
Yeah, so your teams are saying, great, people need to know onboarding. They start that. That's the most common content that's put in a playbook. It doesn't even show up in the top 10 used content when you look at what the reps are using. The reps are using customer stories, specifically stories, not case studies, battle cards. So competitive intelligence. And I mean, these things are fairly obvious, but these are the top 2 searches, specific competitors, battle cards, things like that. Third one, discovery questions. Yeah, we're not talking about product features. We're not talking about industry.
I don't think I would have got that right.
Yeah. And so when we see our customers who are doing things really well and they've got a high-performing sales team, one of the big things that we see, and I mean, this is all pattern recognition. This is a very consistent pattern. They never start with product training or industry training. They focus exclusively on the persona and the buyer. If you're selling to a VP marketing, they focus on where did that VP marketing go to school? What do they get up? What do they eat for breakfast? What events do they get to? What problems do they care about? And if you understand that deeply, you can take any product and have a good conversation with them. And so if I was going to take that into
education.
And so now
that's what they're front loading into the onboarding for these new sales reps.
So we're seeing that pattern. And if I just state my opinion, I think way more companies need to spend way more time on the personas of their buyers.
Because they would predominantly, I mean, what I've seen is just product education, learn about our product.
Totally.
Yeah.
And it's software. So your founders, your CEOs, the people who sold are engineers. And you say, hey, sell like I did. You have to know the product really well because I know it. I built it.
Yeah.
And so it's easy to make that mistake.
That's interesting. Yeah. And I mean, when a lot of customers are showing up in the pipeline more educated around your product than sometimes these sellers, I guess that's a really good way to combat that, because if you focus primarily on the individual, like the persona, then it's the empathy building. It's the, you really know my problem. Now I already know your product's probably the right solution. Now just help me kind of understand how this is going to impact my life. How do you help the teams, extract that from the, and you said it's not case studies, but like customer stories. Like, do you guys have processes for helping them write these customer stories, or how do you do that?
Yeah, so our templates definitely have frameworks that people can use, but I think, so to go back to your earlier comment, just because it's relevant, the skill is listening, ultimately underpinning all of this. Empathy, you need to listen to figure out how to even build that and be curious. And so that same thing applies for all of our implementations and services engagements. And we have a series of interviews that are tiered, where we speak with folks from your sales leadership level all the way down to your individual contributor, and we ask these very specific questions to identify not only what your systems look like, but what are those kernels that actually work within your workflows, and then we distill them and we help you build your playbooks.
When you say individual contributors, do you mean like customer support or engineering?
Great question. So the customer-facing folks, so that would be your SDRs or your AEs or your customer success.
All right, perfect. And so you guys have a process. Is this Kite, or is this a playbook?
Yeah, so this is Kite, but I mean, we have a playbook for this process because we are Kite and we use that.
That's what you do,
so we roll that out, and when we kick off a customer, every time we have our launch playbook, we duplicate that into their workspace, and this is very tactical, but then we follow our playbook and we walk our customers through it, and then we conduct the interview accordingly.
That's cool. What companies do you look at in the space that you admire the way they manage their sales teams in the SaaS, B2B SaaS space?
Sure. I definitely want to hear your answer on this one too. Yeah. It's interesting because we get to see a good mix. We get to see a lot of CEOs. We get to see a lot of individual, reps. Two that really come to mind. I mean, this is one of our clients, Fix. I think.
What do they do?
So they do maintenance management software.
Okay.
So if you think about your car, I mean, you need to change the oil, you need to take it in, get the tires done, and you forget, and so it's an issue. Now, put that onto the level of, say, an airport or a stadium and all their equipment. Okay. So they do software to help you be proactive in maintaining all of your systems. Yeah.
So I guess like building maintenance.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay.
And what I really admire about the organization is they take a very thoughtful approach to the way they run their organization. What's the impact of all their items? They're not just shooting from the hip. But more importantly, their CRO, Dan, I don't think I've ever encountered an organization with more of the managers and individual reps said, I'm working here because I like learning from him.
What does he do?
He's a CRO.
But what does he do?
I wish I knew.
Dude, we need to get him on this show.
He's amazing.
What does Dan do?
The part that I think is really amazing is that he does all of this. He speaks, he coaches, he mentors.
And he's responsible for revenue.
And I get this. I mean, I don't know if I'm speaking out of turn here. I mean, the whole team knows. he is such a driven individual. He'll actually commute by bike sometimes to the office, and he lives in KW, and their office is in Toronto. Like,
Oh, that's intense.
I mean, you need a level
I
of
thought it was like a
intensity.
20-minute ride. I'm like, no,
And
that's
so if I think about aspiring and running an organization
Yeah.
where I'm achieving at his level and my
performance.
team wants to work with me that much,
yeah.
that's somebody that I would put out there.
That's really cool.
Yeah. So yeah,
All
he
right.
definitely needs to be on the
Dan
show.
at Fix, we need to get him
Who,
here.
who are you thinking about?
Yeah, I'm. Gosh, it's a toss-up between Vidyard and.
I wasn't even gonna say you can't.
yeah, I know.
Super biased.
So my hot number two would be Slack, and it's not because of any one individuals. It's because of all of the data points that I've collected over time, and every single time I hear a Slack employee speak about their process and about their product, it is always framed from the lens of their customer first. It is always, we bleed over our customers and the rest follows. And I love that. I think keeping your customer at the heartbeat of your business growth is a significant challenge, and I feel as though they've done that. So
Do you know how they
I
do
admire
that? Do they? Is it part of their training, their values?
Yeah, well, they use Slack specifically. We
Crazy
actually,
idea.
we did actually just get to tune into a recent conversation, a recent talk, and James. Oh gosh, do you remember James?
We just call him James at Slack.
James at Slack.
Yeah,
Yes,
but he
So-
was like early after Tiny Spec when they became Slack. He kind of ran marketing.
Yes.
So
yeah. And what he talked about was just conceiving of a deep empathy for their customers, and the way in which they were able to operationalize that is by using Slack within their environment and integrating their systems. And
So would they let their customers essentially be in a Slack channel with employees?
So I don't know that level of detail. I suspect yes, just
Yeah.
based on the conversations and the feature sets that they've developed since, and
Yeah.
they seem to eat their own dog food.
Yeah.
But specifically, they were talking about the idea of bringing in the team. So they take a very team-based approach, and there's you're going to have multiple touch points throughout the organization for one particular deal. And when a ticket is escalated from one of their customers, it gets automatically floated to a channel where every single member of that team is a part of, and so they get notified. And so we know that today, selling is social, buying is social. It's done in teams. It's not done through individuals. And so they've been able to really systematize that by their use
So
of their own
ticket
product.
comes in, tagged to a certain part of the product. The team in charge of the product gets posted to the Slack channel.
Yeah, I'm not sure if those are the
Something
exact
like
mechanics,
that.
but in spirit, yes.
In spirit, see, this is the interesting part is that if I think too often the feedback from the customer is not, as much as you want everybody to be talking to the customer, it's not as real time, right? It's scheduled interviews. It's, it's maybe quarterly or, it's a little bit more formal, but just being able to have it go straight from customer support tickets or customer success straight into the channel of the people working on that stuff, especially if they're going to go make an enhancement to it, I think it's just so fascinating. Buying is social. What did you say? Buying is social, selling is social. That's interesting. So just how do you, because what I'm seeing is a pattern of just even like the HR stuff you guys did with the sales stuff is kind of creating social objects around communication.
That's totally it. You asked earlier about sales enablement.
Yeah.
And the other lens that we'll speak about is historically sales enablement is treated as broadcasting information to your sales team.
Yeah, is sales enablement is it old?
I mean, the profession is pretty old.
Okay.
It's
I just feel like it's
definitely
more mainstream to talk about it now.
Yeah, it's experiencing much more of a renaissance. There's more tools.
Yeah.
The organization, the employees, everybody appreciates it more.
Yeah.
But one of the things that I think is still at the early stages of understanding is how the social dynamic applies. Because the reality is, if you're relying on someone who hears a squeaky wheel, says, great, I'm going to turn that into a magnificent one-pager, and then send it out to the team, that cycle, that delay, I mean, it's almost out of date the moment you send it out, and your enablement team becomes historians, and that's not what we need. But if you think about a social layer, you might have two reps who are speaking about a deal, one gets an anecdote here, one hears that. If you can distill the insights from that in real time, and these are all things that we do already on social networking. There's a story because a lot of people are talking about a theme.
Social awareness.
It's
It's fascinating how like even the early days, like IRC, people forget about this campfire, hip chat, and more recently Slack, but there was even Yammer prior to that, and it was not about like this information I must read. It's just like I can plug into if I want it, and it's just this awareness of what's going on, and that's where people, if they're motivated and hungry, they can infer, they can take insights, take action, they can use that, and that's what you're saying. you're allowing people on the sales side to move faster, to be more relevant to the customer conversation.
Yeah. So, I mean, if we're distilling it down and using, all the existing technologies, we call them playbooks, we call them cards, but it's a similar metaphor to I'm going to subscribe to a channel and messages and notices show up in those, and it helps me do my job better. And we just make it more visual, and so we lay it out so it's pretty.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
Where do you think, I think it was Slack I was listening to, their SMB sales team, and I say sales team with air quotes because I heard they don't even really have a quota. Like, they're essentially just concierges. Do you think that's going to happen more as products are more? I know Michael just they went to freemium, right? So the more and more that the Slacks, the B2B apps become freemium and customers are using things, and we have things like PQLs, product qualified leads. There's no selling to do. Do you think we're going to get away from a world where salespeople have quotas?
No.
Okay.
I mean, a couple of reasons. One, it's so ingrained. If you tell a sales rep, great, here's the job, here's everything you're going to do, and by the way, there's no commission, you're not going to get the top sales reps because the expectation's there.
Okay.
So that aside, the people side aside, I do believe there's a big difference between products that can be purchased self-service.
Yeah.
We do this all the time. A car is a complex purchase, but you can do it yourself. A house, it's a complex purchase. You could do it yourself.
Yeah.
There's a lot of products that fit that mold, but there are still a lot of products that are encouraging a better future, better life, and you need to help people see that way sometimes. You need to validate that they're interested, and there's an opportunity to sell them on that vision. And because there's so much that's aspirational, there's always going to be at least a cohort of companies where that sales function is crucial because it's really about painting a better future.
And what you say about aspirational is fascinating because, like, a lot of times, especially mid-market enterprise, they're buying product not because of necessarily the feature set, but because of the emotional challenges that they in that role are facing. They're hoping this thing's going to solve and, make them look, like the hero and get the raise. So it's not necessarily a feature thing.
Right there, I think you hit something that we see a lot, even within our clients, the idea of being customer-centric. We talked about customer stories earlier. Everybody's got a customer story that they can talk about, but the companies that we see really get it right recognize that in that hero's journey, the classic Shakespearean one, the hero's got a problem, there's adversity. They get advice from the wise person on the road. They make a change and they win. The hero's not you, the sales rep. It's the customer. And if you have a product or a system that helps someone realize that hero's journey, there's absolutely a role for a salesperson in that.
And that's the skill set.
Yes.
See, that's fast. I remember even in my own coaching, somebody said, stop being Luke Skywalker. Your customer's Luke Skywalker, you're
Yoda, Obi-Wan, anyone.
And I was like, oh my gosh, all my stories, I just keep telling my own stories, but that's not what's interesting, right? And I guess I see what you're saying is that the person who can do that, there's always going to be a need in the market for somebody to allow that to shape up. How are you guys approaching this business different than Tribe?
I'm having trouble picking, so I'm going to let Donna speak first.
Eyes wide open, I think, is the biggest difference. But there are so many differences. And 2011 is very different than 2017 from just, global trends alone. And so that's forced some different decision making. And being able to know what you're getting into before you get into it allows you to overcome or navigate around potential pitfalls
what does that
proactively. So that means, not necessarily letting bad data go for longer than you would.
Okay, so in the past, maybe you'd see something and you weren't sure, there maybe not confidence. Now you're like, no, I now know that doesn't.
Yeah, you now know that if you don't clean up your recurring billing system early enough, you end up with a lot of recurring problems. And so you do it differently that time. So tool selection, data hygiene, that's certainly something that we've approached very differently. But I think for Joseph and I now, we're also at different stages of life, and we have to make sure that we continue to preserve the sibling relationship, but also the co-founder relationship. And so I think we're both bringing to the table a certain degree of expectation management and transparency that we didn't know we necessarily needed the first time around.
How does that show up in the day-to-day?
I mean, Joseph's earlier example around setting my expectations prior to throwing a crazy idea at me, that's always nice.
Yeah.
But then also, there's some scenarios where we'll be having a conversation and my thoughts aren't necessarily as teased out or linear than they need to be. And so I'll do things like say, okay, I've got this idea, I'm working on it, it's half baked. Don't get frustrated if I'm gonna go down this very cloudy path. It's just not there yet, but I need some feedback.
Yeah, you want to talk your ideas out loud.
Right.
Yeah, and it's important, I think, that founders know that that's a thing, because I'm the same way. And if it's a team member and they don't know you, where they think is gospel.
Yes.
Super dangerous.
Super dangerous.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. That's the CEO effect.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. We've got a name for that. But those are examples of where we've done it a little bit differently. Just I think a bit more deliberate this time around.
Okay. More thoughtful, more deliberate. What about capitalizing it or funding or revenue quicker to anything around that?
So I mean, there's certain things that just take time. Like customers buy at the space that customers buy. Customer discovery is a real thing. You need to do that stuff. So some things you just can't speed up too much.
Yeah.
There's a lot of things we're doing more efficiently. The capital question is an interesting one, because if I thought about one big thing we're doing differently, I'd say we're investing unapologetically a lot more. When you take venture money, when you take investment, there's certain expectations, and it's really easy to get caught on that flywheel of, hit this number, do this thing, appease investors, do all of that, and that's a great learning experience, and that can be a specific journey.
Yeah.
But we definitely feel like we have more permission to invest in the things we know that are important, not today, but in 2 years, 3 years.
So instead of being so reactive to the investors' needs, you're saying
we're spending more time on the anticipating clients' needs, team. So things like we invested in security and compliance processes and technologies way earlier, and that's paying dividends. Whereas a lot of startups, they go through, they land their first enterprise customer, realize, oh crap, we can't do this.
Yeah.
And that pattern of investing early has helped us in the way we build our team, the way we build our culture, the way we service our customers, and feeling confident doing that is a lot easier, I think, having gone through it before.
Why are you guys entrepreneurs? Why do you guys build?
I can't imagine doing anything else. I mean, building something, seeing somebody using it, impacting their life. We had a client. I love this. We were at a meetup a couple of weeks ago, and we had a client who, to speak to your earlier question, fully self-service, was using the product, great work. We wanted to talk to see how we could help them get more out of it, and we were having trouble pinning them down just via email and messaging. And one of our team members was chatting with that customer at the event, and called her out, said, hey, we want to chat, we want to help, what can we do? And her comment was, I'm not avoiding you. And our rep said, well, I don't fully believe you. She's like, it's true. And so she stood out in the crowd by the bar. She's like, I love Kite. And that type of response and feedback, as a founder, when you're building product and you see that happen, it's this constant dopamine rush. You're like, they've got a problem, you solve it. You got a problem, you solve it. And that feels so good. So maybe it's because I've got an addictive personality.
You're addicted to that
maybe.
dopamine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I can't imagine doing anything else. Donna, what about you?
I think mine's a little less noble. Yeah, I really just don't like doing it anyone else's way. I like figuring it out for myself. I don't like it when people tell me what I have to do and then do it. I like to come to the decision on my own terms, and so I think that has probably shaped a path for me, which is the hard path, and that is the do-it-yourself way.
To be fair, I think that's been true forever. So that's
That's
definitely
not
a real one. That's not
yeah.
new. That's very true.
Interesting. So your big thing is that you are opinionated or you like to choose the problems you go after.
The latter, I'd say more than the former. I like to be the one who makes the decision and commit myself, and that's because I take my commitments very seriously.
Okay.
And so I believe in follow through. I think that is one of the primary reasons why we do things, and so I hold that near and dear, and I think that's probably defined me a little bit more than I'm comfortable saying.
What do your parents think? Like, have you ever asked your parents about have you ever asked them? Recently I interviewed my wife and my brother, and it was just fascinating, just like asking them, what's it like being married, or my brother, and not knowing what they're like. I would love to have both, your parents here and just be like, You know, how do you guys feel about this?
I'd enjoy that too, to watch their faces as we give answers to those questions.
Yeah.
That would be a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Our parents are both entrepreneurs.
Okay, that explains a lot.
Tech.
Yeah,
I mean,
but entrepreneurial. So you grew up around it.
very much. And huge enablers.
Okay.
That's a really big example. So my first business was a graphic design business. This is in high school.
Yeah.
I mean, aside from like cutting lawns and newspapers and that stuff, graphic design. And I mean, you can only do so many business cards and so many, brochures and things like that. My mother was the first one who said, hey, great, I'm going to help you sell the services into the company. They're going to be doing this campaign, or I'll introduce you. And so open that door. Didn't say, are you sure you want to do this? Or here's how you do it right. Just open the door. And if I screwed it up.
They didn't make it easy, but they didn't make it hard.
But they gave us
just
the
enough.
opportunity. Yeah. And I mean, the reality
What
is
else did they teach you guys?
leaning on each other, I think, is a big one.
That's crazy.
Yeah, the one that
I just love that. I got my 2 boys are 6 and 7. They're like best friends, and I always joke with them that when they're 17, they got to go. And I'm just like, look, it's like I love you, but at 17 you're done. You got to move on. And they look at each other and they're like, hey, we're getting an apartment. And it's so cool. It's cute. Like they're like,
I love that. I got 2 kids, 3 and 8, and I know there's a number of things that I'm going to do that my parents did. And
what are those things? Yeah.
So like one of them is like when we get into a fight. So we have another sister, a middle sibling, and if we got into a fight or an argument, our parents wouldn't tell us here's the way or here's how it's going to work. They would just toss us into one room and say, you got to stay in there until you sort it out.
Really?
Yeah, totally.
All right, Renee, if you're watching this, you'll know why I'm doing this.
Yeah, it's so funny. I hadn't thought about that in so long, but yeah, and then ensues is a bunch of really angry glares for a really long time, and then it's, well, do you want to build the tree fort or not?
Do you want to get out of the room or
I do.
not?
Yeah.
It self manages itself. What else, Donna, from your point of view, do you think that what's a principle that your parents taught you around the entrepreneurial side?
Our parents very much ran their lives by you stick to the plan till the plan changes, and the plan will change, and that was something that they communicated to us.
Stick to the plan till the plan changes. The plan will change, but stay focused until it does. Until you have new information, stick to the plan.
Yeah.
And the reason why is sometimes you're changing your mind. Nothing changed, and you feel like you're not committing.
So I think for them it was embrace change, and don't let the fact that you don't have control stop you from moving forward, because the reality is everything is
You'll never
changing.
have control.
Yeah.
Man, it's so cool. That's really neat. I would love to hear both of you guys' answers from a very personal point of view. When you look back at the individual you were before Tribe to the person sitting in front of me today, who have you had to become to be the person successfully, even though everybody's self-critical? But let's just say you've obviously grown. From a mindset, character point of view, who have you had to become? What have you worked on to become the person sitting here? Joseph?
When you say kind of who's the person, are you talking about kind of what are the characteristics?
Yeah.
Or is it a specific individual? I'm not sure.
Just like we're all on this growth journey, right? Entrepreneurs are typically growth-minded. I'm always fascinated with like what are the things that you might have did or beliefs that you had in the early days that when you look back, you're like, wow, that you don't do anymore, right?
I think one of the big things that I've spent a lot of time and energy on is kind of my understanding and internalizing, whatever the word is, on diversity, inclusion, empathy. It's something that's always been profoundly important. I think coming from a mixed race family, it makes it an easier thing to point to. But being an engineer, I've always really wanted to understand, why am I experiencing things? Why are my colleagues? Why are my friends? Why can some people get those things when others can't? And we've always made it a priority, but it's an evolving conversation. So if I reflect on where I've spent deliberate time trying to grow and mature, it's around internalizing those issues and challenges so that we can do better by our team, by each other, by our customers. I think that's one that really sticks out for me. More selfishly, I think the other one is better appreciating kind of what I need out of life. And this I'd say is less about the entrepreneurial journey than more the founder journey. The process of growing Tribe, selling it, put a lot of stress on kind of me personally and our marriage,
Yeah.
between my wife and I. And one of the things I had to become better at is being a better advocate for what I needed in life.
Putting yourself first.
Yeah, when you're a CEO, you're kind of like everybody's employee.
Yep.
Your investors, your team, your family,
Customers.
all of that. And it's really easy to put your own preferences and needs aside for those. And I had to learn how to give myself the space to do that kind of
And
thing.
the permission to do that.
Yeah. And then learning that language was really tough. And I mean, these are basics. A lot of people have these challenges. But I think the entrepreneurial lifestyle, really applies some unique pressures and really gets them to a breaking point very quickly.
Totally.
Yeah.
That's really cool. Thanks. Donna?
Yeah. So I've definitely become a self-talker, and that will continue to persist
That's a new thing.
throughout my entire life.
What does that mean?
Yeah, that's the idea of, there's past Donna, present Donna, future Donna, and each one has a perspective and each one's valid, and you can be friendly with each. And when you support those different versions of yourself in terms of providing very explicit advice, you can actually change your outcome a little bit more. So self-talk is literally that idea of I'm going to tell myself a thing as though I were a friend, and then I'm going to believe it because I'm okay believing that could be my own friend. And that's, it's a bit of a fluffy way of
How
thinking
does that
about
work
it.
when you say the past Donna, current Donna, future Donna? Is it acknowledging that there was a past and a present and a future? Because I don't even think I would have self-identified. Makes sense once you say it.
Yeah.
And then you're kind of like third party talking to those people. How does that? No, I think it's
It
fascinating.
sounds very noisy in my head.
Yeah.
No, it's the idea of, I am the only person who can help my future self.
Yeah.
And so when I think about that and I own that, then today the decisions that I make can be designed for specific outcomes, because I can tell myself that, tomorrow you'll wake up better, you'll wake up resting easy if you eat your frogs this morning. If you deal with that troublesome thing right now, tomorrow you're going to wake up better. And I know it because present Donna has future Donna's back, and she's not going to she's not going to sabotage herself. And it's letting yourself do that and then following through and then saying, hey, it worked. Thanks, past Donna. Solid. And then doing it again and building up those patterns. And it just creates a healthier, for me anyway, way of thinking about myself and supporting myself. And that's something that's evolved through over time. But ultimately, like you said, it's a journey that we're all on, and it never changes. Just the continuance of learning and growth. And for me, I think the biggest challenge that I continue to face to this day is not being fearful of success and not being frightened of what it could mean to win. And I know that's very separate.
Yeah.
But
How does that, when you say don't be fearful of success?
there's a lot of potential negatives that could come from success that, undue attention, judgment, spotlights, things like that add constraints that make you less free, that mean you can't be as mobile or make your own decisions. And so as somebody who's always been very driven to do things my own way.
Independence, yeah.
Yeah, very independent.
All of a sudden you have a team, you're responsible for them.
Yeah.
Interesting.
That's exactly right. And so not being frightened of that and embracing it and recognizing that it's up to you to decide. It's up to future Donna to make sure and present Donna to make sure that it's going in the direction that is most beneficial. And owning all of that is ongoing and a challenge.
That's super cool. I appreciate you guys both coming on here. I don't know if you know this, Donna, but my dad one time asked me about sending videos because YouTube was being blocked. And I said, well, my friend, this is like 6-7 years ago, my friend Michael Litt has this company. It's called Vidyard. He still calls it Vineyard. I don't know why. It's my dad. And to this day, he tells the story of Victor because he still does support. And he goes, I also married one of the first customers. He goes, we take customer support very seriously here at Vidyard. So that's just a fun little story about Victor, and I know your story. So where do people find you online if they want to kind of reach out and check out Kite?
Sure, yeah. So the best place, they can take a look at our website, Kiite.ai. It's spelt a little atypically. It's got two
Double
I's
I.
in it. Yeah, Kiite. And the reason is it's a Japanese word.
Okay.
To listen. And if we're trying to help people perform better at work, listening is the first step. So Kite.ai. But we're also both super accessible on Twitter, LinkedIn, email. Our emails are easy to guess. Joseph and Donna at Kite. So
Yeah,
we're there.
every founder. It's very easy to guess.
Exactly.
Appreciate you guys so much for coming on. Thanks a lot.
Thanks so much.
Thank
man.
you.
Cheers.
Take care.